Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
You know, the drive-by casual, the agnostic sports fan is going to tell you that college football season is over and it's time to focus on other things. And what my grandma or the fabled Baba would always say, you got to tell them kindly but firmly to go ahead and kick rocks, because even though it's been over a week since the national championship game took place, the sport truly never sleeps. We have an opportunity to expose some people tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have some talk about the CFP format, which I know is going to cause some adult conversations that need to be had. And then not only that, we had the opportunity to dive into the mailbag as well in order to answer some of your guys' burning questions. But in the meantime, welcome everybody to College Football Red Zone, your exclusive home for 7+ hours of commercial-free college football. I'm joined by the right-hand man, Reed Napper, as well as my boy Colton as well over at O&O Sports. Gentlemen, how you boys doing tonight?
I'm great. Jake, to be honest with you. Reed, I know Reed's great. He doesn't have to answer.
I'm great because you're here, Colton. I'm great because you're here. You want to show off to the people what you brought for your first episode?
Oh, yeah, just for the occasion. Tie and everything. I'm here. It's the inaugural episode of Colton on the Red Zone. I'm ready. I'm ready.
I'm sorry, I can't, bro.
Dude, I gotta hook you up with some ties that I got at the house that don't get as much burn as they normally do for the daytime job. I mean, I don't know if it's as good as yours, but I mean, I got some ties in the arsenal. But,
I feel like it goes with my shirt.
We should have worn a polo with it, so you could put the tie under the cup. Never mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that tie. Dare I say it might match your eyes? I mean, it's a phenomenal tie.
Thank you. I mean, like I said, dress for the occasion. This is momentous. This is history.
Yeah, absolutely making history tonight as we have our first ever mailbag here on College Football Red Zone. We're talking college football playoff format, and then we also have some other burning questions that you guys had here tonight in terms of the mailbag. We're diving into all of that, so it's going to be a great show here tonight. But before you do that, make sure you do a couple of things for me, because it will warm up my cold, dead heart. It will warm up their hearts as well. Make sure you go ahead. Make sure you hit that like button. If you're watching on the YouTube platform, hit that like and subscribe button. Makes it a lot easier for you guys to get to our content if you're doing both of those things. And then if you're watching this on Twitch, because we are streaming on multiple platforms at the same time, because we are a bougie organization over here, man. make sure you go ahead and hit that follow button over on Twitch as well. So going to be an absolutely electric show tonight. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. And it starts with one of the first questions that we got in terms of diving into the mailbag. And I know this is going to definitely cause some adult conversations that need to be had, starting with my guy, Edgar Carter, over on the YouTube channel. Sorry, I haven't been on the streams lately. Life has been busy. However, the question is very simple. What is your take on the Notre Dame situation? Do you agree or disagree that they should get an auto bid if they're in the top 12? So starting off on a heater, gentleman, who wants to take the first bait, man? I know there's a lot of interesting thoughts.
Go ahead, Colton. You just got here, bro.
I hate it. I mean, just look at this year. It's between Notre Dame and it's between Miami. ACC, not champion, but the best team in the ACC versus the independent. And what happens? Miami gets in. It was questionable at the time. You know, should the head-to-head matter? I say yes. But Miami gets in. They make it to the national title game. And in this system, this new system, that wouldn't be the case. They weren't a Power 4 champion. Notre Dame was top 12, but they would get in this scenario, whereas a team like Miami would be left out. I just feel like there's no place for favoritism in this setup. I mean, in that case, every team shouldn't be in a conference, because if you finish top 12 and you're BYU, you automatically get taken out if Notre Dame is in it. So what would that incentivize me to, one, be in a conference, two, win a conference championship? It just doesn't make any sense for the Notre Dame aspect of it, but we can continue.
Yeah, and I think like something that really needs to be said as well is, Notre Dame really in the past 30 to 60 days since the announcement of the initial playoff field back when we had selection day in early December, they really lost a lot of that sympathy, because I think in the aggregate, I think it does make sense having Notre Dame in behind Miami, and Miami getting that lean in because of the fact that those two teams did meet up on a field, but the way in which it happened, where going into conference championship weekend, if you remember, you're talking about a Notre Dame team who didn't play in conference championship weekend, was ahead of Miami, and Miami didn't play in the ACC title game either because the tiebreakers just did not work out in their favor. So the fact that both of those teams didn't play and Miami still slid up ahead of Notre Dame, I understand Notre Dame fans being pretty upset about that whole situation, but then at the same time, not only going out, talking about how you got screwed over, which I'm sure like every coach in that position would have done the exact same thing. But then you're talking about you go ahead and skip the bowl game, the famed Pop-Tarts Bowl, the audacity of these people, and Marcus Freeman's from my hometown, so I speak very highly of Marcus Freeman, but in that moment, like, you're talking about the Pop-Tarts Bowl, one of the darlings of this sport, and you're saying no to that darling. And then what happened here in terms of having Notre Dame having this clause in where Notre Dame automatically gets into the top 12, just disgusting stuff, just borderline criminal behavior.
The biggest thing for me is the biggest question in the first 2 years of the 12-team playoff has been teams on the bubble, teams on the edge of getting in. This just solidifies that there will be more teams left on the bubble of the playoff when it comes to Selection Sunday. You're automatically giving a spot to Notre Dame if they're in the top 12. So that's one, along with the 5 highest ranked conference champions. So you're already halfway at the field. You're already halfway to the 12. So the thing for me is it screws a lot of teams that are on the bubble. It ruins, underdog stories that we've seen throughout the past few seasons. Namely, like, what if an Indiana was on the bubble and didn't make the playoff? Vanderbilt's been on the come up the last few years. For example, Kentucky under Will Stein in year one, if they make a huge jump and they're on the bubble, do they get screwed out of it? Like, that's the biggest thing for me. I completely agree. It's blasphemy that we're even giving a team an automatic spot in the playoff if you're not in a conference. I'm all for the conference champions getting a spot in the playoff. I don't think they should all get first round buys like it was this past season, but they at least get a spot in the tournament. It's blasphemy. I think Notre Dame should just cough it up, join a conference already. To be honest, I get it why they don't, because of the revenue and the funding that they get from being an independent. All the money that they get based from football goes straight back to the university. They don't have to pay it, lump sum to their to a conference. So I hate it. I'm pretty sure we're all aligned on that, but yeah, it screws a lot of teams you're going to see on the bubble going forward.
What I don't understand is what the motivation is by the committee to just be like, you know what, this year it seems like we got it figured out. Let's just change it up. Like, what is I understand they're not happy that 2 G5 teams got in, but we're talking about something that's like a 1 in 10,000 chance of happening next year. Like, the fact that it happened this year is one thing. Like, sure, James Madison, Tulane, that's because Duke at 7-5 won the ACC. That's not going to happen every year. So they saw that. They were scared, honestly, which is probably why Miami got in, that the ACC wouldn't get in at all and had to, oh, sorry, Notre Dame, join a conference maybe. Now that's out the window. Miami maybe got a little favoritism over Notre Dame this year. I'd argue the system made more sense because you're just straight seeding, first of all. There's no, like, auto bids, or I guess auto placement. There are still auto bids, but it's top 5 champions. If you're going to do that, just leave it be. I feel like this was the best year. I mean, we've seen 2 years of the 12-team format, but of the 2 years, this was by far the best year of the playoff. 2024, the first whole round of the playoff, arguably, was pretty bad. And from then on, a couple games even were pretty bad. It got better. But this year was, Indiana kind of carried a little bit. That wasn't a competitive game against Alabama. But, who didn't like seeing Indiana give BTA to Alabama? Who didn't like that? Every single game was more watchable this year in the playoff than it was last year. And I feel like we're kind of taking a step backward by saying, okay, well, it's going to be every Power 4 conference champion regardless, and then the highest Group of 5 conference champion. On its surface, nothing really wrong with that. It's just I don't understand why we're so quick to make changes when it seemed like, it worked last year. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I think that's really something that needs to be touched on, because I know we had some folks on here on the last show talked about some of the problems that we see in college football, and I'm sure that we're going to have some deeper conversations about it as we progress through this non-football playing season. Really, one of the bigger problems for me that college football is experiencing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is, plain and simple, these conferences are just way too big, right? You're talking about the ACC, which is really a hot button topic. That's a 17-team conference. The Big 12 and the SEC isn't as bad, but we're still talking about 16 teams. The Big 10 is the worst with 18 teams in this conference. So the conferences are at a size where even if you go and play 9 conference games, which the ACC is in a transition year, they're trying to get to that point where everyone in the ACC is playing 9 games. Still, even then, you're talking about playing maybe half of your conference. So it becomes a lot harder from a tiebreaker perspective in terms of figuring out who are truly the 2 best teams in the conference, right? Duke, missed certain teams during the course of the regular season. They missed out on Miami. They didn't have to play them in the regular season, which is a perfect example of that. And so because these conferences are so big, and because of the fact that the tiebreakers are so convoluted as well, it helped create that situation. Because if it was Miami and Virginia in the title game instead of Duke in the title game and winning, we're not even talking about a second team in the college football playoff from the G5. It would have just been Tulane, and it is what it is at that point. But one thing that I also think about just in terms of the Notre Dame situation is I think about UConn football. I think UConn football also has a right to sit there and ask themselves, listen, if Notre Dame's going to get this treatment because they're an independent and they're not going to get a path to securing one of the automatic bids because they're not in the conference, Where is that same energy for UConn? We're a football independent. We don't have a pathway to get to a conference title. Where is our do we get those same rules as well, or does it apply because of our football branding? It's just something that I really thought about that I think does get put on the back burner a little bit.
That's a fair point.
I mean, yeah, I didn't think about that either.
UConn's a good school. They were, in my ranking, they were in the top 25 by the end of or before the postseason. I mean, we've seen crazier things. They could be top 12. And in that case, is it just Notre Dame? Does Notre Dame have their own rule where it's, hey, Notre Dame will get in if they're top 12? In which case, it's a little fishy, don't we think?
Right. And it wouldn't even be as bad if you make a rule where it is, okay, anyone that's a football independent, if you get into the top 12, that will be your quote unquote automatic bid. But from what I've seen, it's only Notre Dame that it has applied to, not a UConn. And UConn, it is on the rise. So, if they could put together a season where, they get to that 11-1, 12-0 type of season, they could approach that top 12 threshold that would be required to be in that legitimate conversation. So definitely feels like a little bit of favoritism for sure. But what's really crazy to think about as well, and I definitely want to throw this graphic up because I want to make sure to really drive it home. So if we were to have the exact same results as we did this year, have it apply for next season. So Notre Dame, we talked about them a lot, but then Duke as well. Duke would get in over an 11-1 James Madison, which understand about the strength of schedule conversations that were had about James Madison and Tulane. But at the same time, I feel that it's really disingenuous to go out here, put together 11-1 record. That is extremely hard to do in today's era of college football. To go 11-1 and to not be considered for a playoff spot, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that we're not considering here, I think it puts a lot more pressure on teams to go and win their conference, which last time I checked is not a given. It's not the easiest thing to do. So it puts a lot more pressure on those teams that, again, are on the bubble. You might as well just go and win your conference, get an automatic spot in the dance, and then call it what it is. Because, again, you're already filling up 6 spots by the time you consider Notre Dame in the 5 highest ranked conference champs. So you might as well, go and win your conference. Puts a lot more pressure on these teams that, don't really have a, fair chance to make the playoff at the end of the day, unless they do win their conference. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are wrong with this, in my opinion, but I mean, we can't break them all down tonight, but I was going to preface how much time do we want to spend on this, because literally we could talk about this probably the whole show with how astronomically dumb this is. But I'm not the host.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean it's something that I know that we could probably have its own show in terms of everything that's wrong with college football right about now. I know this in particular. Because like Colton said, we're talking about a 1 in 100 chance, and that's being generous. That what we saw happen did end up happening. So it's crazy. It is wild. But it is what it is. But on the bright side, at the very least, we did not have an expansion on the CFP. We are at least going to remain at 12 teams. Is it because the SEC in the Big Ten? Was it because they couldn't agree? Probably. And that probably played a little bit more of a role than, maybe these conference commissioners actually having the best interest in the sport at hand. But at least we still have a 12-team playoff, which I think as of right now, I think from what we've seen, I think 12 teams, that is the perfect size in terms of our CFP, at least as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, Colin said it earlier. Why we're 2 years into the 12-team playoff? Why are we going and trying to expand it or make it smaller? Pause, but You know, why are we trying? We only have 2 years of a sample size. Let's see how it goes for the next 5 years, for example, and then let's make a decision. You have 2 data points. That doesn't really seem like an informed decision to me. And another thing related to Notre Dame, if we're going to allow them to get an automatic spot in the tournament, if they're in the top 12, how about you actually give them a resume worthy of being in the top 12? They have, if you looked at their 2026 schedule, it is one of the softest. It's unbelievable. Their strength of schedule next year is going to be ridiculous. They play, what was it? I think they played 4 teams on their 2026 schedule that had a winning record. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. It was Miami, Navy, SMU, and yeah, thank you.
I got you.
SMU, BYU. Yeah, they play 4 teams that had a winning record in 2025. That's not a top 12 team in America.
Yeah.
With that schedule.
No, and it's definitely going to create some interesting conversations, especially given what we saw went down this year as well. It's definitely going to be one of those years where, you know, they're going to have to win either the BYU game or the Miami game, you know, or even SMU. SMU is on the come up as well. That's definitely something to monitor as well for the 2026 season. But yeah, I mean, that's something that we could definitely go all night in terms of talking about what the heck are we doing here, you know. But before we get going, you know, just want to answer a quick question in the chat. Louis George did mention, you know, like, where is Marcus Freeman from? So he's actually from my hometown, as I mentioned. He is from like the great city of Huber Heights, Ohio. You know, born and raised. So it hurts because I actually do have a little bit of a soft spot for Notre Dame because of the impact that he's had on this on the community where I came from. So seeing Notre Dame pull this tomfoolery, it hurts. It really does hurt. But anyhow, we still have some hard-hitting questions here tonight that we're definitely going to attack. Appreciate everybody on the live stream right now. Hopefully y'all sitting back, having a good time, staying warm. Astronomical amount of snow throughout the country. So if you are watching this live stream and it's because you didn't lose power, you know, make sure you go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button, you know, hit that follow button if you're on Twitch as well. And boys, you think that was the only hitting question that we have? Boys, it gets even spicier because the next question I got actually is from the great land of Twitter. That is talking to you know, my guy, Coach Cam Vetter, out of Cam Fetty Free, asking a position by position comparison. Who is better, 2025 Indiana or 2019 LSU? The 2 best teams I've seen in my lifetime. So what I went ahead and did here, got it up on the board. I just got to go ahead. We're going to move ourselves to the side so that we have a better view of the board. So, well, we can go ahead and debate and go line by line, starting with the quarterback position and go all the way down to the head coach. You know, got to make sure the CEO of the college football team is accounted for. So I'm going to start with the easiest here. And I don't know if you guys have any objections. Listen, when you talk about 2025 Indiana, I love Fernando Mendoza. He's a dog. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. But Joe Burrow was just something else, man.
Yes.
You know, that's the last time that we've seen him with a competent offensive line. And every defense that he came across just tore him apart relentlessly. It was barbecue chicken, all 15 games that he played. Obviously, the big edge got to go to 2019 LSU when it comes to that quarterback position.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have the stats up in front of you, but I do. So Fernando Mendoza this season threw for 3,535 passing yards. For context, Joe Burrow threw for 5,671 yards in 15 games, in one less game than Fernando Mendoza. 41 touchdowns for Fernando. Joe Burrow threw 60. 72% completion percentage for Fernando, 76.3 for Joe Burrow, with a astronomical 202 passer rating on the season. 202. Like what? Like he is arguably the greatest college football player of all time with that stat line.
And one of the things that not a ton of people talk about is how the game operates now. A lot of it is the fact that there were more possessions per game. I mean, Joe Burrow has over 150 more attempts than Fernando Mendoza, but and with all of that, even still considered pure quarterback versus quarterback, pure arm talent, pure football IQ, Joe Burrow is easily the choice here. Fernando Mendoza is a great system quarterback. You might think negatively with that description, saying that he's a system quarterback, but he is. He is a very solid quarterback within the Indiana system. I think he's overrated. I don't think he should be the first pick in the NFL draft. Doesn't mean I don't think he can be an NFL quarterback, but you're talking about probably one of the best players ever, like Reed said, versus Fernando Mendoza. Love the guy, all the heart in the world, all the work ethic there to become a very, very good quarterback in the NFL. Hands down, I think it's Joe Burrow very, very easily.
Oh, all right. So that's probably going to be one of the easier ones that we got. Obviously, I think if anyone picked like Fernando Mendoza over over Joe Burrow, that is I don't like to use the word clickbait, but that would have been sheer unadulterated clickbait, and I like to have spicy takes, but I like to have some substance behind them. But
go back and watch the tape. That's all I'm going to say. It was unbelievable.
Well, would you even go so far as to Google him?
I get that. I understand that.
Hey, by the way, he did win, if you haven't seen.
He did win. That is true. All right. So next group, going down to our running backs right now. We got a 1-0 edge in favor of 2019 LSU. Talking about the running backs, and listen up. Maybe it's a little bit on the spicy side. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I'm curious what you hear what the live chat thinks. I'm actually going to go with Indiana here for the running backs. And while I think like Clyde Hilaire is a little bit better than any of the running backs on Indiana's roster, Indiana did have 2 1,000-yard rushers over the course of this season. Roman Henby, who got a lot more of the publicity with over 1,100 yards on the ground. But then Keelan Black as well, with less carries, also finished with over 1,000 yards rushing on the ground as well, over 5.5 yards per carry. And so that makes me really think I really want to roll with LSU, or not LSU, excuse me, Indiana, in terms of the running backs. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think in terms of the running game.
Yeah, I definitely am going to lean Indiana. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the more impressive singular performance. I mean, you're talking about 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, and an offense that had multiple 1,000-yard receivers. It's just, the caliber of offense we're talking about in 2019 LSU. But if you're talking about room, Hemby, best RB1 maybe on any playoff team, maybe other than Mark Fletcher. Keelan Black, best change of pace back, best red zone back, maybe on any team in the playoff. It's both over 1,000 yards by the end of the season. It took 16 games for Black to get there, but he was there. You're talking about 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns amongst those two. I would probably lean Indiana.
I am also going Indiana, solely because they have 2 backs that ran for over 1,000 yards, whereas Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the only back on LSU at that time to rush for over 1,000. So I think they were a very good 1-2 punch, an underrated all-time 1-2 punch, just solely because they were both transferred into Indiana. Roman Henby from Maryland, Keelan Black followed Signetti from JMU. So they both took a step up to the level that they played at. And I personally thought Roman Henby was an underrated portal acquisition last offseason. I thought he was really good for Indiana. So that obviously, played out to fruition. So I'm also going Indiana here for the running backs.
All right. So that does mean that we have indeed a point for Gryffindor, as 2025 Indiana is going to officially get themselves on the board. So we got ourselves a tie ball game between 2025 Indiana and 2019 LSU.
To be fair, though, if we can go 1-1, but if we're talking about quarterback, there should be like 7 or 8 pluses for LSU, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we can keep going one by one. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. It was definitely a more significant edge, like in terms of quarterbacks. And this is no disrespect to Fernando Mendoza. I mean, he's an excellent football player. I mean, Joe Burrow is just him, though. But the thing is, I only have enough in the budget for one plus sign at a time. So, so that's why like we only get the one plus instead of multiple pluses for I guess a BTA type experience when it comes to these positional groupings. But anyhow, moving on, got ourselves some receivers, wide receivers and tight ends. I decided to group them into one because I didn't feel like splitting them out, to be honest with you. So receivers, I got to go with LSU. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
I mean that the fact that those two were on the same team,
that's pretty cut
at the same time
combined.
Yeah, it's
just
on top of a 1,500-yard back.
That's pretty cut and dry. Yeah.
38 touchdowns.
Yeah, because I mean, like, just listen to what these two did. I mean, Jamar Chase in that 2019 campaign, 1,780 yards receiving. And then Justin Jefferson was the second receiver. He was the second leading receiver in yards. He had over 1,500 yards. For context, like, there was not a single receiver on Indiana's end that reached 1,000 yards. And if we're being real, I mean, Omar Cooper, I love him. He made an incredible catch in that Penn State game. Recover your ears for this one. He made an incredible catch in that Penn State game. But at the same time, I mean, he's no Justin Jefferson. He's no Jamar Chase. So I think this one's pretty cut and dry here. Gotta go with the receivers of LSU. And if I had it in the budget, there'll probably be multiple pluses there. I don't know if it's that particularly close.
I'm looking at it too. We all just forgot that Thaddeus Moss played on this LSU team and had 500 yards.
I didn't.
I mean, he was their fourth receiver. Thaddeus Moss.
Yeah, it's I remember Thaddeus Moss, man. He was a strong, legendary Bengals practice squad player. You know, there will be no Thaddeus Moss disrespect on this show. And if there is, I will walk over to where you're physically located and write a strongly written letter about why you're wrong.
Also, don't forget Terrence Marshall Jr. Had some big games, especially had some big plays, especially in the playoff that year. Yeah, this is pretty.
I mean, on that LSU team, you could probably go to their 15th wide receiver, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy." That's just the kind of team we're talking about. Probably the best offensive team ever.
Yeah, definitely like the best offensive team ever. But now, so LSU got a 2-1 lead. Now we move on to that offensive line between Indiana and LSU. I actually think Indiana's offensive line was better over the course of the year. And it's really interesting to think about. LSU had some incredible playmakers, which helped the offensive line a lot because when guys are getting consistently open, that certainly helps. But even though Indiana didn't have the same level of playmakers and they didn't have the same level of quarterback that LSU had, Indiana, even though they played in one more game than the 2019 LSU team, Indiana actually allowed 5 less sacks than LSU did, which I thought was really fascinating. That was not something that I expected to read when I was researching earlier today. So going off of that and how they constantly looked at the line of scrimmage throughout the regular season, I actually want to lean Indiana for the offensive line.
And I think that's indicative of the kind of team Indiana was. You know, RPO heavy, ground game heavy, 2 reads for Mendoza. That's just the kind of team they were. They relied on that offensive line, and that's why they were successful. And that's why a lot of teams are successful in this common age where you don't have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, the two best NFL wide receivers on your team. So you're relying on the offensive line to essentially be your entire offense. Because if you give Fernando Mendoza time, if you open up gaps for running backs, you're not going to have any issues. Whereas back in 2019, really, you just needed 4 wide receivers from Miami and tell them, hey, we'll find you. Just take off. We will hit you. Joe Burrow, he's going to hit you. Okay, that was the game plan back then. Indiana's offensive line played more of a heavy role. And that's why I think they were, efficiency-wise, very, very successful this year.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what Colton said. It really depends on your preference, like, I guess, game plan-wise, like the style of play you want. Indiana was dominant in the run game. They averaged 213 rushing yards per game, 5.2 yards per carry. So all of that relies on the offensive line. Obviously, they were one. I know I said this on Thursday too when we were talking about the championship game recap and just Indiana's season in general. They were one of the most efficient and clinically sound offensive lines you will ever watch play football. Every assignment they were on, run blocking, pass blocking, they were just a thing of beauty if you love like watching the offensive and defensive lines. So as for LSU, I think I'm going to give them a slight edge here just solely because you are protecting Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow would not have been able to throw for 5,600 yards if he didn't have a good offensive line. I get it. Back then, it's totally, we've 4 stud receivers. They're down there somewhere, and Joe's just going to chuck it down to you, I am going to lean LSU solely because Joe Burrow could not have that productive of a season if it wasn't for that offensive line. So it's a slight edge. I love that Indiana offensive line, mainly Pat Coogan. I know Colton had him in his top 50 players of the season. Unbelievable to transfer from Notre Dame. Only give up 4 pressures all year is unbelievable. So I love both these offensive lines, but I'm giving the slightest edge to LSU.
Yeah, and I think like Patrick Coogan, I know you talked about him like just now, but I remember back in the previous transfer portal period, that was not somebody that was getting talked about very often over the course of the previous offseason, but really turned into one of the fundamental pieces. You want to talk about not only someone that's a really good offensive lineman, but really has incredible leadership as well. And I think any NFL team would be very happy to have them on their team whenever like it's time for him to go and play in the NFL. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna call that one a push. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna don't mind me while I do some administrative work on the back end. So yeah, definitely like very, very contested. But I mean, both of these offensive lines are very good and extremely talented. Now we go to that opposite line of scrimmage, though. We go to that defensive line. Now, famously, because both of these offenses were so good, it was easy for both of these defenses to be able to tee off and rush the quarterback, forcing other teams to constantly be one-dimensional because of how dangerous both of these offenses were, but doing it in different ways. But the more that I sat back and look at it, even though LSU might have had the more talented pass rushers per se, at the same time, though, I look at Indiana's pass rushers, they actually turned out to be more productive, right? Looking at Indiana's pass rushers versus LSU, yes, as we already mentioned, Indiana did play that additional game because of the fact that they played in a 12-team playoff, while LSU played in a 4-team playoff. But Indiana was actually able to get 9 more sacks in this LSU defense. A defense for LSU, which, as great as that team was, it wasn't an elite defense by any means, where, Indiana definitely had a very elite defense. So I'm actually going to also lean for defensive line. I'm going with Indiana here too, just because of how well they were able to get after the quarterback over the course of the season.
And you're talking about an Indiana team where their best defensive lineman, and specifically the defensive line, not the whole team, the defensive line lost their best pass rusher before the playoff, Stephen Daly.
Yeah.
Had 19 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. I'm going to have to go with Jake here. I think Indiana's defensive line specifically was a lot better than LSU's. We're going to get to the next batch of players in a second. I think that is the reason they had a ton of success on the defensive side of the ball that year, but we'll save that for the next part.
Yeah, I think this is pretty clearly Indiana's defensive line, just solely because they were a more collective unit, as opposed to what Jake said earlier. LSU had a lot of NFL ready guys in their own right, but Indiana's defensive line was a unit, as a more collective unit. In the words of Fernando Mendoza, we were just a group of scrappy guys, a bunch of misfits. And yeah, Indiana's defensive line was pretty good. They definitely would not have anywhere close to the amount of success they had this year if it wasn't for that defensive line. And also shout out to Mikhail Kamara from my hometown. So shout out to him.
Shout out Michael Kamara. He's not from my hometown, but just shout him out.
Also because he's awesome, and he blocked a punt in a national championship. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, you want to talk about a core memory, it's funny, when you so whenever like someone is laying on their deathbed and they're actually like pass away, like no heartbeat, the brain still remains alive for 7 minutes and plays basically a 7-minute montage of the best moments of your life. I would imagine, like, in those 7 minutes for Makai Kamara, that's probably going to be up there as one of the first like moments of the montage.
That's going to be in mine, and I didn't even do it. That's how impressive of a play it was. I don't know why y'all are laughing. I'm serious. That's what's going to happen.
First punt blocked for a touchdown in playoff history.
It reminded me, it's cooler because it was in the national championship and it was a more unique play. But it reminded me a lot of Ohio State guy. I forget his name.
Jack Sawyer?
Texas. Yes, Jack Sawyer. Fumble 6 versus Texas last year. Very, very crucial.
That championship defining play. Yeah.
And that's going to be my version of listen, I wasn't even the one that was involved in it physically in any way, but that's going to be a core memory for me because I'm a dad, and that was when that game happened. My son was just 1 month old, and I had him in my arms. So like he was like sleeping, and then I was watching the game, and I was watching that unfold, and it's like the best way you can get hyped without physically making any noise to wake this baby up. I'll never forget that. So that's a core memory of mine. But keeping it moving though, going down to the linebackers though, Colin, I know you like hinted at it, and I'm sure like you're gonna have some thoughts on it as well. I can't help it. I'm actually really surprised with how much I'm leaning towards Indiana. Like just sitting back and look at it like group by group, I'm leaning towards Indiana here too. I didn't think I was going to come to this conclusion before I started doing the research, but the way that Raji Hardy and Isaiah Jones, they're arguably the 2 best players in that defense. I got to roll with Indiana. I'm as surprised as you guys, but I didn't think I was going to do this. But like after I did some research for the show, I was like, damn, I might have to go Indiana here too.
I mean, that's fair. I would go LSU just because, it partly is in retrospect. We know how good those 2 linebackers are. But K'Lavon Chaisson, Patrick Queen, arguably the 2 anchors of that defense. They weren't blowing teams out of the water defensively. They had a great secondary. These 2 linebackers really anchored that defense down with a defensive line that wasn't bad. They weren't bad by any stretch. But to me, these are the 2 guys on the LSU defense. I know they had secondary, but in terms of the front, they carried a lot of the weight, whereas Indiana's linebackers did. They absolutely did, but it's more of a, we're going to dominate you up front, we're going to use the linebackers as plugs, so they're going to get a lot of the gaps that are being provided by the defensive line. And that's not to take away from Indiana at all. I understand why you'd lean Indiana for linebackers, but to me, the impact of these 2 linebackers for LSU is what makes a difference for me.
I am torn on this one. I'm torn on this one just solely because there's a lot more notable names on this LSU linebacking core as opposed to Indiana's, but Indiana's was once again, as I was talking about their offensive line, their defense, mainly led by the linebackers, was just so efficient in every metric that you look at, defensive like statistics wise. So I am torn between this one. If you put a plus for both of them in a tie, I would not even argue. I don't even know if I can lean either side because both these linebacking groups are really good. Also, we haven't mentioned Aiden Fisher's name. Just want to say that we haven't mentioned the leader of the entire defense, Aiden Fisher. So I personally would go plus on both sides. But
Yeah, I mean, like just like the more I sit back, like it's, I mean, you could really make a fascinating case for really either. I'm gonna call it a push, so like for namesake, but I mean, it just goes to show like just how good like Indiana was this year, defensively. You know, because of the notable names that are on this LSU defense that you talked about, Reed, but yet Indiana's like right there. Like it's not head and shoulders better by any means, but you could really make an argument for either 2025 Indiana or 2019 LSU in terms of who had that better linebacking core. So we got 4 advantages for LSU right now for 2019, got 4 advantages for 2025 Indiana. It's getting down to the wire as we get to the last 2 categories, which leads us to the DBs. Oh my word, these DBs, man, they were special this year for Indiana. Not just talking about D'Angelo Ponds, he probably gets the most love. But then you're talking about Lewis Moore, who had 6 interceptions. Amari Farrell had 4 interceptions as well. This passing defense allowed less than 200 yards per game in spite of knowing that, hey, Indiana's going to provide that BTA offensively. Teams are going to have to pass the ball to try to remain in games. But yet, in spite of that, Indiana allowing less than 200 yards passing on a per game basis, sure, you could contribute that to the defensive line instead of linebackers. But I mean, the DBs, they gotta be straps as well and put that seatbelt on. And to their credit, they absolutely did as well. Where I look at LSU's, LSU, they certainly played optimistically over the course of the season, but I wouldn't say it's an elite secondary by any means outside of, like a Derek Stingley, for example. So I actually leaned Indiana here when I'm looking at these DBs.
I have to disagree, unfortunately.
Okay.
I mean, I really like Pons. I like Indiana secondary as a whole. I think we'll all remember the D'Angelo Pons performance, and it's probably freshly on our minds. It was a great performance, especially in the national championship game. That being said, LSU has 2 All-Americans in the secondary. They had another 3 guys who are essentially locked out. I mean, Stingley, Delpit, those are the 2 guys. But looking, Christian Fulton, 14 pass defenses, and this is higher volume. This is also a lot higher volume. How it worked for Joe Burrow. You're also facing teams who pass the ball at higher volume than they do now, so you're getting more opportunity for these. But I mean, I really like Indiana's secondary. I really like their ability to play in the run support, which I think was an underrated aspect of that Indiana team this year. But if you're talking about prowess, if you're talking about production, pure production, I have to go with LSU.
Bro, Louis George getting on me in the comments. Reed think this is a smile and nod competition. I'm waiting for my chance to speak. I'm waiting for my chance to speak. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Colton. I don't have much to add to that. He basically said exactly what I was gonna say. There's 2 All-Americans in that secondary. You could go 5-6 players deep of how good that secondary was for LSU. The Indiana secondary was very solid for what they were. And again, it is, as exactly like Colton said, it is fresh in our minds. It's the most recent data point that we have. And D'Angelo Ponds, for the season that he had, will forever be remembered, as well the rest of the Indiana team. But I think I would personally lean the LSU secondary just solely because of the star names that they did have on that secondary. I mean, they had 2 All-Americans in Delpit and Stingley. So, and they are pretty good players in their own right in the NFL now. So, I would have to lean LSU.
All right, so that gets us like about 5-5. Like in terms of Indiana's had 5 categories in terms of either having like a partial agreement or full agreement. Same with LSU. It just shows how incredible 2025 Indiana is and how incredible 2019 LSU is too. The last one that I had was the coach. So we're talking Kurt Zanetti or Ed Orgeron. Boys, at the end of the day, who would you rather have as your head coach? Knowing what we know right now, Kirk Zanetti or Ed O?
Just head coach.
Just head coach.
Give me Kurt Zanetti. All of my money. You can have whatever you want.
I want Cignetti.
If it's just head coach, honestly, if it was the coordinators also, I was going to go Indiana. But I wanted to bring up some of the LSU coordinators. Dave Aranda was their defensive coordinator in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Joe Brady. He's cool. They had Mickey Joseph, who was one of the best wide receiver coaches in the country at the time. Now, I believe, still the head coach at Grambling.
That's cool.
But even though all of that, I think Indiana has 2 head coaches right now as their coordinators. I think Bryant Haynes easily is going to be a head coach in the next 3 years, or at least should be, if he doesn't want to win the next 3 national championships in a row. I think Mike Shanahan probably will end up being a head coach at a lower level. I really like their offense. I just don't think it's like high octane enough to warrant the Galesh treatment or the Heartline treatment. You know what I'm saying? So definitely would lean Indiana either way, but just head coach. I'm taking out loans. I'm taking out 8 mortgages on a home that I don't even have. It's all on Kurt Zanetti in that aspect for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. Like if it was just head coach, I would definitely go with Kirk Zanetti as well. But thinking about those coordinators that you talked about, like not just like Joe Barry, but also like Dave Aranda as well. If you go like top to bottom, I mean, you definitely have to roll with the LSU coaching staff. So like head coach, Kurt Zanetti all the way. I don't think anyone's gonna doubt that. But at the same time, if we're looking at a entire coaching staff holistically, I got to go with LSU as well. So I'm rolling with, not much more to add. I mean, Colton, everything you said, took the words out of my mouth, bud.
I have nothing to add. I have nothing to add either. It's Cignetti, and I was about to say it's not even close. I was about to say it's not even close, but then I had to remember that Ed Orgeron got all those players there to LSU. So. Yeah.
If it was in the budget, I know we talked about quarterback being LSU, but if it was in the budget, eight green pluses.
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah.
How much do we need for one more green plus?
We need one more. We need to like and subscribe. So if you're watching, if you could like and subscribe, that would add an additional green plus in the budget. So that
do we take David Buster's card?
Does that say fun is in the cards today?
It does. Good job reading, Reed. Is that why they call you Reed?
That's
this guy. This guy.
One of one.
Officially one of one.
Yeah. But for those of you that are watching the live chat, definitely want to hear from you guys. Who would you rather take? Would you take 2019 LSU or would you take 2025? Definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you're watching this in the comments section, if you're watching this back after the fact, or you're in your live chat right now, definitely let us know. I would still roll with 2019 LSU. I think they would be this 2025 Indiana team, but I think it would be a pretty close game. I think LSU, it would be like a 1 possession game, but I think 2019 LSU would pull it out.
I saw a post about this the other day on Twitter. They were asking what the hypothetical spread would be on the game, and I said, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think I said LSU minus 5.5. I think would be the line, but I would hammer LSU in that spread. Hammer.
I think it's just different games now than it was. Like LSU has the ability to spread you out like no other team, bro. Like no other team currently is even capable of doing, just because the talent, there's a bigger talent disparity now than there was back then. So if I really like the defense, I really like Indiana's defense. I think they could get pressure on Joe Burrow. I don't doubt them in that aspect, but there's just so much volume in a 2019 LSU offense.
Dude, this guy Lewis is getting on everybody.
What did I do?
I don't know. Did you push him up in the middle like that?
Probably. I mean, that's one way to do it. There's like 3.
I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah, I saw it throw it up in the chat. No, I mean I would probably agree with Reed though in the sense of like I would probably take LSU minus 5.5, but I don't think it was going to be one of those games where like Indiana is going to slaughter Indiana. At least like this version of like Indiana. Now historically, BTA, right? I think we can all agree on that. But you know, like this year's team, I think it would be an incredibly close game, be a 4-quarter game, but I think it would be one of those like Indiana keeps it close for most of the game, and then like LSU pulls away, and that's how they cover.
I would set the spread at a disrespectful point, and I'll just leave it at that.
A point?
No, at a disrespectful point. Not 1 point. But okay. If I said it out loud, you guys would be like, what? It's just volume. I mean, you can't guard that many NFL players.
LSU minus 19.5?
It might be around there.
I mean, yeah. I also think LSU would just have too many offensive weapons for Indiana to deal with. You're talking about 2 stud NFL wide receivers. I mean, aside from D'Angelo Pons, I couldn't even tell you anyone on Indiana's secondary that would be able to keep up with Jamar Chase or Jefferson. But yeah.
On top of that, they had a back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire who could catch out of the backfield and did a good amount. Yep. It's hard to guard. It's just hard to guard. I don't think there's any team that's equipped to do that in this landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's completely fair. But I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section, as well as in the live chat, who you're taking and what do you think that hypothetical final score is. Definitely want to hear your thoughts in the live chat and in the comment section as well. And while you're doing all that, it only takes a few seconds to do this. Hit that damn like button. Hit that subscribe button as well if you have to be brand new too. It takes a few seconds. It helps the show tremendously. You know, you got one job. If you could do that one job, that would be great, and I appreciate it. But we got one more question from the mailbag tonight. And Reed, unironically enough, this was something that you posed, to the group. So you asked specifically, like, who is the best college football player you have watched, either in person or in general? So for me, I got 2 stories. One from who I saw play their high school career, and one from their college career as well. So for me, I had the chance to watch Braxton Miller play in high school, someone that's also from the Mecca, that is Huber Heights, Ohio. When I was just a wee lad, he was just an electric football player. I mean, everyone likes to talk about his spin move that he made in the Virginia Tech game during his college career. But he had some incredible highlights as well in high school. And the big story, one of the notable stories that I had, even with everything that he accomplished on the field, is off the field when he was doing fundraising for the football program at the high school. And, like I was about, like 13, 14 years old. So when he came by, he actually came by the house, to sell some, it was like these cards that had like restaurant stuff in there. And he came by and he's like, "Hey, is like your parents home?" So I got my dad. And so my dad like asked me while I was talking to him, "Hey, can you grab my wallet?" And while I was doing that, I was like, he goes, "So you play football?" And he's like, "Yeah." What position you play? And he knew like all along, like he's seen him play before. Like, "Oh, what position you play?" It's like quarterback. He's like, "Oh, that's cool. That's cool. You any good?" and he was he's more humble dudes that you can come across in real life. So that was, and he also I got a chance to throw the football with him prior to his true freshman year, as he was like competing for the quarterback job. It turns out against Joe Bowserman, right? Don't know how he got a starting job in that era, but it is what it is. But I remember watching him play. Was a erected player, especially in high school. And then in college, one of my favorite players to watch was Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. Had a chance to watch him in person for the American Conference Championship game. Was there for that field storming that secured Cincinnati's berth into the 4-team playoff. And what was really interesting, like I've seen incredible DBs, but Sauce was somebody in college where not only was he so good, where it was like if you threw the ball to him, it was most likely going to be incomplete or it was going to be an interception. Opposing teams were so scared of this man that they just outright refuse to throw in his direction. So it essentially turned into half-field reads the entire game when he was on the field. So that was two of my favorite players, Braxton Miller, especially in high school, and then Sauce Gardner in college. But definitely curious what you guys think, though.
I have a question about the question.
Okay.
And I guess I can just ask you, Reed, because you drafted and posted it. Either in person or in general. So does that mean like on the TV?
Yeah.
I mean, in general.
I guess I should have been more specific.
I mean, you only get so many characters on Twitter, so I get it.
That's fair. I'll go with in person just for the sake, because if it was in general, I'd probably say like Cam Newton or Joe Burrow. But in person, I'm trying to think. This is probably. I'm trying to think of what year this would be. I am from upstate South Carolina, which means even though I'm not a fan of Clemson, I attended a lot of Clemson football games. One year I went to the Clemson spring game, and this was, I want to say 2011. It was the year that I believe DeAndre Hopkins was a sophomore. And at the spring game, it was kind of like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins, he's the new guy. He's the guy right now. Like, okay, we'll see. Absolutely tore it up. It was a spring practice, but in terms of talent, I mean, dude's probably going to be a Hall of Famer in the NFL. So that's probably the best player I've ever seen with my eyes. I also went to a Clemson game in probably 2018 or 2019 where I saw Trevor Lawrence and a lot of those guys, Travis Etienne, T. Higgins. Those are probably the best players I've ever seen in person.
All right. And I mean, I definitely am going to have a soft spot for T. Higgins. Not only am I a college football fan, obviously, but I'm a Bengals fan as well. So I've, I've seen T operate, particularly in the NFL. I'm familiar with his game, and I mean, he's absolute stud. So I've always enjoyed watching T play as well. Reed, what about you though? As the question poser, who's your go-to?
I'm surprised you guys are allowing me to answer my own question.
Well, of course.
But growing up, going to, a lot of Penn State games. I don't have a number off the top of my head, but a lot because I had season tickets growing up. So just off the top of my head, probably I mean, Saquon Barkley is easily up there. He is a freak in person. If you ever get the chance to watch Saquon Barkley while he's still in the league, to watch him play in person, I would take it because he is unbelievable in person. Mainly because I forget which year it was. I want to say 2016 or 17. It was the whiteout game against Michigan. Saquon's running a wheel route up the seam. It's essentially a go ball against a linebacker. He beats the linebacker. McSorley hits him. He juggles the ball into the end zone and then does his famous like running in craziness away. Like it was insane. Also underrated college player that I watched play in person. He didn't really pan out in the NFL, but KJ Hamler, if you guys remember that name, KJ Hamler was one of the fastest people I've ever seen in person. I've also a whiteout game against Michigan. It was a few years later though. He ran a slant on, it was either the first or second play of the game. We got the ball first. He ran a slant and cribbed that thing 75 yards. Unbelievable. One of the fastest players I'd ever seen in my life. So there's also been a handful of other Penn State players. I could go on and on for a while about it. Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter, like the list goes on and on. So those are just the two off the top of my head, but definitely Saquon is easily the best player I've ever seen in person.
Now that Hamlin like 75-yard slant, that wasn't like the same game as the like the famous like the Mo Bamba like clip that you saw at like the beginning of the game where like Michigan couldn't like figure out how to get a play.
No, that was the Saquon juggle game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was that game because Michigan started with the ball and then it was later in the game, but Saquon also cribbed another one like that first drive. I was like,
was that a McSorley year?
That was a McSorley year. That was his last year. That was when we beat Utah in the Rose Bowl. No, that's the year. No, that's the year after. Sorry, that's when we were up on Ohio State by like 2 touchdowns in the shoe, and they ended up coming back. JT Barrett.
Shout out James Franklin.
Why? See now, hold on, Jake. See now, why'd you have to do that?
No, I'm just. He was the coach, right?
Shout out Big Game James.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
But listen, I actually do remember watching that specific game because I remember having a like a cross country meet back in my college days, like up in Oberlin College, up in northeastern Ohio. We had a master class day, PR from your boy, a younger and significantly laid less like version of Jake. But then I remember like afterward, like we watched the game in the hotel because I went to go spend time with my parents and went home for the weekend afterwards. And it was so hotly contested. So my dad and I are Ohio State fans, and my mom is a Penn State fan. My mom would love you, by the way, Reed. So we had to watch the game in separate rooms. Luckily, there was multiple rooms with multiple TVs. But I remember it being a hotly contested day, and my mom waking up the next morning, she was pissed.
Yeah, the one shimmer of light that I saw when we play Ohio State was that game, and we blew. They literally scored the winning touchdown with like 30 seconds to go or something. I was like, "Yep, it's never gonna happen."
Yeah.
Ever since the blocked field goal, which also, funny enough, just a quick story. I was at that game. Ended up leaving early because we were 21-10 or something, like late third quarter. I was freezing my ass off. I was like, okay, I'm out of here. Like we're gonna lose again. As soon as I walked in the door at my grandfather's house, they blocked the field goal, and I'm just losing my mind. Unbelievable. So yeah.
All right, y'all. So that is going to conclude the mailbag. It's been an incredible show. You know, we exposed some hypocrisy. We exposed some incredibly bad judgment from those that are in charge of college football right now. And that's really the best way that we preserve our sport, is making sure that we hold these people that are in charge of our sport hold them accountable. But then we also, we talked about some of the burning questions in life, like who's better, 2025 Indiana or 2019 LSU, as well as who is our favorite player at any given time. We all agree that it was LSU. Definitely want to hear you guys' thoughts in the comment section, though. But hey, in the meantime, we are going to sign off for tonight. We got our next live show on Thursday where we continue to talk about everything college football, because even in this time where college football games may not be played, that doesn't mean the sport is sleeping, because it's certainly not doing that right now. So if you enjoyed the show, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well as if you're on Twitch, definitely hit that follow button, because what we do on Saturdays in the fall, there's a reason why it's called College Football Red Zone. It has a lot to do with that. So with that being said, this is Jake, joined by my co-hosts Reed and Colton. Hope you guys are all out there having a good night.